Students, last class we studied about different types of nutrition: heterotrophic nutrition, autotrophic nutrition, inheterotrophic nutrition, holozoic, symbiotic, parasitic, etc. Now, in Holozoic, we also studied about amoeba, how it takes the food, and the 5 steps involved in Holozoic nutrition. Same way, here in this today's class, let us study about other two systems: nutrition in human beings and respiration in human beings. Now, let us study today about life process lesson, second part, that is digestion in human beings. Nutrition in human beings. Nutrition in human beings takes place in the digestive system. There is a separate system. I told you each process has its own system to procure. Nutrition in human beings takes place in the digestive system. It consists of the alimentary canals and glands which produce enzymes which break down food into smaller molecules. Alimentary canal is a continuation of from mouth to anus, a continue of the organs together is called as alimentary canal. Digestive tract, we call it as digestive tract. And also some glands will be present which produce the enzymes to break down this food. Now let us see. Human digestive system. The main organs of the human digestive system is mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, anus, and along with it two other organs. They are not directly into the alimentary canal, but they are the part of this. That is, one is liver, the other one is pancreas. There are digestive glands. There are main glands. The main glands of digestive system are salivary glands, which is produced in the mouth, gastric glands, which is produced in the stomach. Liver is one type of a gland which produces the bile juice. Pancreas produces pancreatic lipase and other juices, enzymes. And next is intestinal glands. In the small intestine, there are a number of glands which produces the enzymes. Next, let us go through this alimentary canal. The long tube extending from the mouth to the anus is called alimentary canal. You can see from the mouth to the esophagus, stomach, small intestine and large intestine. Next, first let us study about mouth. Mouth is also called as buccal cavity. It is called the buccal cavity. In mouth, you can see salivary glands, tongue, teeth, everything. You all know why teeth is used: to bite the food, to cut the food and bite and crush and grind it into smaller pieces. The food is broken down into smaller particles by teeth and mixed with saliva from the salivary glands. What is saliva? Is released in your mouth, that mixes the food which is bitten by the teeth. Saliva contains the enzyme salivary amylase. Please note this: salivary amylase in the mouth released by salivary glands in saliva helps to convert starch into sugar. It acts on starch. Whatever the food starch is there in the body, in the mouth, salivary amylase acts on that and it converts into little bit of sugar. Now when the food is ready in the mouth, it is passed on to the food pipe, or called esophagus. The food passes through the esophagus into the stomach. There's a small tube and you eat your food. Your food is little bit larger than the food pipe. How the small pipe push it? That movement is called as peristalsis. You can see the picture here, how food is pushed inside the small food pipe. Peristalsis is the contraction and relaxation of the muscles of the esophagus and digestive tract to move the food through the digestive system. See how it is being pushed. It contracts and expands and pushes the food through the esophagus. Next, when the food comes and falls into the stomach. J-shaped organ. You all know that stomach is a J-shaped sac-like structure. Now, the gastric glands produce gastric juice which contains the enzyme pepsin, hydrochloric acid and mucus. What is produced inside the stomach? As soon as the food goes, immediately hydrochloric acid is released and pepsin is there, and mucus is released. What is this mucus? Let us see. Pepsin breaks down proteins, whatever proteins food we eat. You all know the nutrients of the food, like carbohydrates, vitamins, proteins, fats, etc. In that, protein is broken down by pepsin released in the stomach. And hydrochloric acid, ma'am, acid inside our stomach. You all know that there is acid inside our stomach which breaks down the food, and also there are other very important, helpful, useful things done by hydrochloric acid. Let us see the function of hydrochloric acid. It makes the acidic medium which is necessary for the action of gastric enzymes like pepsin. It kills most of the harmful bacteria. It makes the acid like hydrochloric acid. It is type of acid. It makes the inside the stomach, it makes it like acidic so that the enzymes can act on this food particles. And also one more thing, whatever you have consumed, some of the bacteria or harmful bacteria, what you have eaten along with your food, it will be killed by HCl, that is hydrochloric acid, in the stomach. I was talking about mucus. What is this mucus? The mucus is a liquid, jelly-like liquid released throughout the stomach wall, inner stomach wall. The mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach from the action of acid. I told you hydrochloric acid. After all, acid and acid. Acid is an acid. If the acid can corrode anything, it can eat away anything, or it can corrode on anything. Why can't it eat away stomach's inner linings also? There's a chance. To protect that, a gel-like mucus is released around the wall to avoid the action of hydrochloric acid on the stomach's wall. If mucus is not secreted, then it will lead to the erosion of the inner lining of the stomach, causing excessive acidity and also sometimes ulcers. Wounds will be formed in the stomach if the mucus was not released properly, and ulcers by HCl. Now, you all might have observed, if you go to somebody's function or some festival time and all, you don't control your eating. Often many items will be there, you get attracted towards it and you eat too much, and later on you start feeling that in the esophagus some irritation in the stomach and the esophagus. Somewhat you feel like you're not at all digesting it. What is that? It is called as acidity. Too much of eating, too much of acid is released, and too much of acidity is working on the stomach. Acidity is a condition when there is excess secretion of acids in the gastric glands of the stomach because of too much eating. That is also there. It can be neutralized. What you will do, maybe most of the time your parents or most of them, I don't know, I've eaten too much, I'm feeling uneasy, go get me a Eno. You bring and give the Eno and they drink it along with the water. And what is that actually happening? What should be added to acid to neutralize the effect? Yes, base. Base is added to acid to neutralize the effect. Here also, it can be neutralized by taking antacid. Eno is an antacid. It is somewhat basic in structure. So, antacid like Eno is taken to neutralize the acidity in the stomach. Next, the food, whatever half digested food. Remember, stomach does not digest the food completely. A little action is done on the food, then the food is sent into small intestine. Small intestine plays a very, very major role in digestion, absorption of food. Small intestine is a long coiled tube. It receives the secretions from the liver and pancreas. As soon as food goes inside the small intestine, liver sends some juice, and even pancreas also pours some juice into the small intestine. Small intestine is the site of complete digestion. Where does the complete digestion of food occur? It happens in small intestine. Small intestine is a site of complete digestion of proteins, carbohydrates and fats. The glands in the walls of the small intestine produce intestinal juice. There are the glands in the first half of the small intestine linings of the layer. There is walls of small intestine. There are intestinal glands which produces intestinal juice. Now what actually happens digestion in small intestine? The enzymes of the intestinal juice converts, they act on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is changed into glucose, fats is changed into fatty acids, and glycerol and proteins into amino acids. Bile from liver breaks down fats into smaller globules. Whatever bile juice comes from liver, it breaks down the fats into small globules. Next, pancreatic juice from pancreas. You all know pancreatic juice is poured from pancreas, and that contains enzymes trypsin and lipase. Trypsin and lipase. Please remember all these types of enzymes and on what type of food they act. Trypsin breaks down proteins and lipase breaks down fats. Bile is already working on it. It is making the fat into small globules. Again, this lipase, it again further breaks down the fats. You might have thought that all the mammals have same type of small intestine. No. Herbivores have a longer small intestine rather than carnivores. Why? Herbivores eating grass need a longer small intestine to allow the cellulose to digest. They eat the raw plants directly, and you all know plants have a cellulose, cell wall. Around the cell wall, in between cell wall and cell membrane, there is a thick jelly-like thing called as cellulose. That cellulose takes lot of time to digest. So, it is a longer small intestine. Meat is easier to digest related to cellulose. I'm talking, ma'am, you're saying that non-vegetarian easy to digest than vegetarian foods. No, it's not like that. Here I'm talking about herbivores where they eat the raw plants, directly the raw plants. Hence, carnivores have a shorter small intestine. Next, liver. Let us study about liver, and it releases some juice. The liver is one of the largest organs in the body. It has many important metabolic functions. What are those? Liver secretes bile juice from bile duct. Bile juice makes the food coming from the stomach alkaline. From stomach it is coming acidic. Here the bile juice goes and makes it alkaline, basic. It increases the efficiency of enzyme action by breaking down the fat into smaller globules. Next is pancreas. Pancreas secretes pancreatic juice which contains the enzyme trypsin for digesting proteins. It also produces the enzyme lipase for breaking down emulsified fat. What is this emulsified fat? Bile juice converting fat into fat globules is called emulsification. This emulsified fat is further break down by enzyme lipase. It also produces an important hormone called insulin. You all know diabetic patient. You have diabetic patient in your house, you can just know about that. Pancreas is not producing insulin properly. Then they suggest the patient to take tablet to motivate or regulate the production of insulin. If the pancreatic is not at all working, insulin is not at all released, then the patient will be suggested to take the insulin injections directly into the body. So it also produces an important hormone called insulin which regulates the blood sugar level in the body. Now one more, now digestion is over. In the small intestine, when the food is passing through half of the small intestine, most of the digestion is completed. Now the food has to go back to the body. It cannot go out through large intestine. It cannot go directly out. All the nutrients are there. Now what will happen? The inner lining of the small intestine has numerous finger-like projections. You just see your fingers how they look, like finger-like projections called villi, which increase the surface area of absorption. This villi is only for absorbing the nutrients which is already digested. The digested nutrients is absorbed through villis. So these villis absorb the food. The villi are richly supplied with blood vessels which take the absorbed food to each and every cell of the body. Each and every cell it absorbs, goes to the blood. Through blood, it sends to all parts of the body, in parts of the body, each cell of the body. Now, comes the last organ in the digestive system, that is large intestine. The large intestine, also called the colon, is part of the final stages of digestion. It is a large tube that absorbs water from the indigestible residue of food and throws waste from the body. Again, whatever all the food is absorbed, all the nutrients in the food is absorbed, then whatever waste is left out in the small intestine is sent to large intestine. Here what happens, large intestine collects all this waste, whatever useful absorption like water and all, it absorbs, reabsorbs whatever extra water is wasted here. Useful water is taken again, it is absorbed again, and the other waste is being thrown out through anus. So here you can see the heterotrophic and autotrophic differences is there. Let us see autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. First one, food is in the autotrophic nutrition. Food is synthesized from simple inorganic raw materials such as carbon dioxide and water. Simple inorganic material, it is synthesized such as carbon dioxide and water. Whereas in heterotrophic nutrition, food is obtained directly or indirectly from autotrophs, fully dependent on autotrophs. This food is broken down with the help of enzymes. Here food is broken down through enzymes. Second one, presence of green pigment chlorophyll is necessary. For the production of food, preparing food, chlorophyll is very, very important, whereas no pigment is required in this type of nutrition. No pigment is required here. Next, third one, food is generally prepared during daytime because sunlight is very important for photosynthesis, for autotrophs. Whereas heterotrophic nutrition, food can be prepared at all times. They can eat anytime because they are eating already grown plants. So it's not obvious that night also they can eat and day also they can eat. All green plants and some bacteria have this type of nutrition. Very green plants and some bacteria, blue-green algae, all those things have this type of nutrition. Whereas all animals and fungi have this type of nutrition. So with this, we have finished about digestive system in humans, nutrition in humans. Now let us study the other system in humans. That is, next one is, after this food is absorbed, nutrients is absorbed, through blood it is sent to all parts of the body, each cell of the body. Now how do we get the energy with that nutrient? To get that energy, we need something, that is oxygen. Where do we get this oxygen? Obviously, you all know we get oxygen through respiration. So let us study about respiration and how this food nutrient is released as energy. Respiration. The process by which a living being utilizes the food to get energy is called respiration. Living being utilizes the food to get energy. Here only digestion and absorption and assimilation is done. Here it has to be used up. Now energy has to be released. Respiration is an oxidation reaction in which carbohydrate is oxidized to produce energy. It is an oxidation reaction. What is the chemical equation for cellular respiration? C6H12O6. What is this? You remember? Glucose produced in the process of photosynthesis. C6H12O6 plus 6 oxygen falls on it. 6 oxygen molecules react with it to give 6 carbon dioxide molecules plus water, and energy is released. Now let us study about human respiratory system. The function of respiratory system is to breathe in oxygen from nose for producing energy for food and to breathe out carbon dioxide with the help, which is released as byproduct, and with the help of lungs, gases are exchanged between the alveoli and blood vessels. Let me see, you can just see the organs here. There is nasal cavity, trachea or windpipe, pharynx, larynx, bronchioles, trachea, lungs, bronchi and alveoli. You can see from mouth, from nose, a pipe, the where the air is breathed in or breathed out, that is nostrils or nose area. From there is a wind pipe coming, which goes to pharynx. Pharynx is a place where foot pipe and wind pipe meet each other, only it is differentiated with epiglottis. You remember? In digestion, I just maybe forgot to tell you, there is one flip flop which avoids food going into windpipe. Regarding that, I'll tell you in later class. So this pharynx, and again that passes through larynx. Larynx is nothing but voice box. What we have the voice box in us, vocal cords where is there. Through that it passes and it goes to windpipe. Trachea is another name for windpipe. From trachea, it emerges into two branches, that is bronchi. From that bronchi, small tube-like structures is enlarged network of tubes is called as bronchioles. At the end of the bronchioles, there is a small sac, air sac, which is called as alveoli. There the air gets collected. Steps of respiration, very important. Breaking down glucose into pyruvate. Already glucose is there. This step happens in the cytoplasm. Each cell, I am talking here, the breakdown of the food and getting energy, it's not in one organ or any one system. It is happening in each cell. Whereas digestion happened only in digestive system, whereas this respiration and releasing of food, only breathing in, collecting and leaving out carbon dioxide and oxygen happens in respiratory, lungs and nose. Whereas this complete food is released as energy happens in each cell. So in cell, you all know there is a cytoplasm and also mitochondria. What happens? First steps happens in cytoplasm. Inside the cell, just anywhere inside the cell, cytoplasm. This step happens in the cytoplasm. Glucose molecule is broken down into pyruvic acid. What is this? This is called as glycolysis. The breaking down of the food particles into carbon molecules like a breakdown. This is called glycolysis. Glucose molecules is composed of 6 carbon atoms. You all know, no? 6 carbon. While pyruvic acid is composed of 3 carbon. It breaks down into two batches of carbons. That is called pyruvate. See, here molecules, glycolysis, here it is pyruvate. 2 into. Now steps, second step is fate of pyruvic acid. Further breaking down of pyruvic acid takes place in mitochondria. Cytoplasm is over. Now it enters the mitochondria. In mitochondria, and the molecules depend on the type of respiration in a particular organism. Is it aerobic or anaerobic? That I will tell you later about it. So depending on that, the further action is taken place. See, in cytoplasm, glucose, again it becomes pyruvate, and then lactic acid is released. That I will tell you in detail. Next, whereas in mitochondria, fatty acids, it is acetyl, then citric acid and oxygen is released. Carbon dioxide is released, water is released, and ATP, adenosine triphosphate, here the energy is released. What is this pyruvate? The 3 carbon molecule formed by the breakdown of glucose is called pyruvate. Glucose is broken down into 3 molecules, 3 different 2 molecules. It is called as pyruvate. Now let us study about 2 different types of respiration, anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. What is anaerobic respiration? The process of breakdown of glucose in absence of oxygen is called anaerobic respiration. In this process, small amount of energy is released. Here what is happening? Oxygen is not there, but still some breakdown of pyruvate is happening. Here very less, minimum energy, very less, minute energy is released. Glucose, 6 carbon molecules is broken down into 3 carbon molecules called pyruvate. The pyruvate is converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide. Very less energy is released, and again it is ethanol and carbon dioxide is released. So anaerobic respiration. So the pyruvate, it pyruvates and ethanol and carbon dioxide is released as the last product. Whereas in aerobic respiration is the process in which glucose is completely broken down into carbon dioxide and water in presence of oxygen. It is complete breaking down and release of enormous amount of energy is released. See here, you can see here in cytoplasm, it is in mitochondria. Glucose 6 carbon molecules is broken down into 3 carbon molecules, that is pyruvate, but using oxygen. Pyruvate breaks up to give 3 molecules of carbon dioxide and water. Now you might have observed sometimes when you are running or suddenly getting up, or sometimes all of a sudden you sit, somewhere in your muscles you get muscle cramps. Somewhat all of a sudden it starts paining for you. You can't move, you can't do anything with that. That part becomes very hard. When there is a lack of oxygen in the muscle cells, pyruvate is converted into lactic acid, which is also a 3 carbon molecule. Here also the breaking down of molecules are happening, carbon molecules. Here earlier in the absence of oxygen, I told you ethanol and carbon dioxide is released, whereas here in our muscles it is normal with the oxygen breathing will only be happening. All of a sudden, due to some reason, if oxygen is not there, then that converts into lactic acid and it starts paining for you. This buildup of lactic acid in the muscles during sudden activity causes muscle cramps. Now here you see the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. Its end products are carbon dioxide and water. It yields more energy, that is 36 ATP compared to anaerobic. The process takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria. Whereas anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. End products are ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. It yields very less energy. Imagine that is 36 ATP, whereas here it is only 2 ATP compared to aerobic respiration. The process takes place only in cytoplasm. Here aerobic can happen in cytoplasm and mitochondria, whereas anaerobic happens only in cytoplasm. Now how does this complete breakdown of glucose happen in all the 3 sequences? That is in the yeast, absence of oxygen. In our muscle cells, lack of oxygen. Here in presence of oxygen in our normal cells in mitochondria. First, glucose in cytoplasm, 3 pyruvate carbon is released. Then plus energy is released. What is the end product, byproduct? Let us see. In the absence of oxygen in yeast, we get ethanol plus carbon dioxide and very minute energy. Next, same thing, lack of oxygen in our muscle cells. Lactic acid plus energy. Next, presence of oxygen in mitochondria after pyruvate, that is carbon dioxide plus water plus lots of energy. I was talking about ATP, 2 ATP, 36 ATP released, energy is released. What is this ATP? Let us see. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. The energy released ATP, as you all have studied, mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell, whereas this ATP is called the currency of energy. Energy currency. The energy released during respiration process is used to make an ATP molecule and ADP, an inorganic phosphate. See, ADP plus phosphate with the energy, it gets ATP. ATP is the energy currency for most cellular processes. Now, we studied about exchange of gases in humans and all. Let us see how it happens in plants. Exchange of gases in plants. During the day, carbon dioxide generated during respiration is used for photosynthesis, right? Morning, during daytime, sun is there. Whatever carbon dioxide is released as waste product carbon dioxide is released for respiration. Yeah, you all remember, right? Even plants do respire. Like us, even they need oxygen for respiration. Breaking down of the food and getting energy, even they need oxygen, but their requirement of carbon dioxide for photosynthesis is very, very much more than their release of carbon dioxide during respiration. Hence, there is no release of carbon dioxide. Most of the daytime, plants don't release carbon dioxide at all during respiration, because that carbon dioxide is used for photosynthesis. At night, there is no photosynthesis occurring, so carbon dioxide is the major exchange taking place. There also, during night, even plants also release as much as of carbon dioxide. Because photosynthesis is not occurring, usually you might have observed your parents telling, don't go down the plants at night, near the plants or down the plants, because lots of carbon dioxide is being released. You get fresh air during morning or sunlight hours. Nasal cavity, let us see a few points about nasal cavity. How does the nasal cavity help in respiration? Nasal cavity has fine hairs which filter the dust particles for the air passing through it. The passage is also lined with mucus which moistens to avoid friction and traps dust particles. Small hairs you might have observed in your nostrils. Those nostrils they avoid the dust going inside, and also they release some mucus so that this dry hair doesn't go inside and cause any trouble to us. Next, one more point, you might have observed in food pipe or trachea, there are something ring like structure. Why do the walls of trachea not collapse when there is a less air in it? You might have observed, so much air we are taking always through the windpipe. We inhale, we exhale, fast or slow, however we are doing, but still our windpipe does not go down with the pressure, air pressure, it not collapse, because trachea is supported by C-shaped cartilage, rings of cartilage. Cartilage bone is covered with this pipe is covered with the cartilage structure. Trachea is supported by C-shaped rings of cartilage, so the walls of trachea do not alveoli. Within the lungs, the passage divides into smaller and smaller tubes which terminate in balloon-like structures which are called alveoli. They are small air sacs like. They are balloon-like structures which are called alveoli. Alveoli provide a surface where the exchange of gases can take place. Behind the alveoli, there are lots of fine network of blood vessels. They all bring from all parts of the body this carbon dioxide, water waste product is released, that is brought into near the alveoli, and from the air oxygen is taken through lungs to alveoli. Here the oxygen is sent to the blood vessels. The blood from blood vessels, carbon dioxide goes to alveoli. Again through alveoli, through lungs, through the nostrils, the carbon dioxide is thrown out, whereas this oxygen which has come to the blood vessels goes to all parts of the body and cells and helps in the releasing of energy. Next, state the three common features of respiratory organs. The three common features of all the respiratory organs like skin, gills and lungs are: all the respiratory organs have large surface areas to get enough oxygen. Large surface area, remember they have large surface area for the oxygen to be there. All the respiratory organs are very thin walled for easy diffusion of gases, exchange of gases and substances that can be done. So that is there. Next, all the respiratory organs like skin, lungs, gills have a rich supply of blood for transporting respiratory gases. The difference between terrestrial and aquatic organisms. The advantage over aquatic organism, terrestrial organisms have with regard to obtaining oxygen for respiration. More beneficial is for terrestrial organisms which live on land rather than the organisms which are dependent on oxygen, which live in water. Air contains more oxygen as compared to water. In water there is less oxygen, whereas in air more oxygen. Terrestrial animals do not have to breathe faster to get more oxygen. The rate of breathing of a fish in a minute is much faster than that of humans because oxygen dissolved in water is very less than the air. Whatever the oxygen is dissolved in water is very less compared to the oxygen percentage in the air. Here is a small link I've sent where you can see the breathing mechanism, where you breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. You can just click through that and see that easy mechanism. So with this, students, we complete our respiratory system, human respiratory system. In the next classes, I will be talking to you about the other organ systems. Thank you.